Italy, right at the heart of the world. The Mediterranean Sea, history, Romans, and, well, a lot of trouble in modern times. This map shows Italy in its position in the Mediterranean Sea at the time of World War I. And as you can see, there was a bit of a problem on the border called the Austro-Hungarian Empire. To understand why that was a problem, we need to talk about something else. Francesco Crispi. This was the Prime Minister of Italy during the 1890s, and he was known to be a fierce nationalist. He was proud to be Italian, and he wanted to make Italy great again. He felt that Italy was rightfully a world power and should be recognized as such by the rest of the world. He needed friends, and friends were to be had to the north. Although Austro-Hungary was a threatening empire for the Italians, the Germans were not. They had come to power at the same time as Italy, forming their nations in 1871. Italy used its friendship with the Germans to enter the Triple Alliance. The Germans, Italians and Austro-Hungarians teamed up together to try and stop the threat of what became known as the Triple Entente. Russia, France and the United Kingdom were probably the strongest countries in the world at that time, and it was imperative for the Italians, Germans and Austro-Hungarians to protect themselves against the threat of this very, very strong alliance. And that brings us to Africa, because Africa was still open for colonization and had lots and lots of resources. This is where Crispi found his downfall. Italy had already established holdings in East Africa, and Crispi wanted more. He had his eyes firmly on Ethiopia, but Ethiopia proved too much, a very difficult landscape to fight in, and a much fiercer resistance than they expected meant that they lost the war to conquer Ethiopia. Fortunately though, in 1912, due to a series of circumstances, Italy gained control of Libya. Trouble was brewing though, because the Austro-Hungarians and Germans were becoming more and more warmongering, and Italy wasn't sure it liked all the noises that they made. Italy started to make secret negotiations with the Brits, French and Russians. World War broke out in 1914. Emperor Franz Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was murdered by a teenager in Serbia. By this time, Italy had negotiated to take part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Italy joined the Triple Entente, declared war on Austro-Hungary, and opened up a front at the border with the Austro-Hungarians. Many lives were lost on this front. Nearly 2 million men died. As with the other fronts in the war, it was mindless slaughter. Men died for nothing. They didn't gain a damn thing. Italy came out of the war really, really beat up. The real losers, though, were Germany and Austro-Hungary. Both lost lots of territory, and Austro-Hungary got split up into all its constituent nations. The once proud and opulent empire was completely cut to bits, and Italy gained what it set out to gain: Trieste. The Italian people, though, were not satisfied. 600,000 men had lost their lives in a pointless war. Almost every family in the country was affected, and all they got was territory that they already considered their own rightfully anyway. What happened to the promises of more gains in Africa? What happened to the promises of more gains in Europe? Nothing. At the end of the war, Europe was in a mess. People everywhere rose up. In Italy, Il Duce rose to power. Fascism was the winner in Italy, in Germany, in Hungary, in Austria. The people of Italy united under a charismatic man, Benito Mussolini, a worker, one that they could relate to. His goals were simple. Italy should be a great country again. It should be self-sufficient. It should have an economy that was not dependent on other nations. Mussolini was a likable man, and the people loved him to bits. His party, the fascisti, became more and more popular and gained ground, and before Italy knew it, it was under the reign of a dictator. An important part of Mussolini's plans to make Italy great again focused on the navy, the Regia Marina. Under the Treaty of Versailles they had been limited to 71,000 tons for their biggest ships. In the first years they could not afford to build any, but under Mussolini they started building 4 impressive battleships, the Littorio class. History was important to Mussolini, but not as important as the future. He envisioned an Italy that dominated the Mediterranean again. He only wanted to look forward, to develop the latest technology, to make Italy great again, to make it compete with the biggest nations in the world. But that was not easy. Poverty reigned in Italy still. The First World War had ripped the country apart, and it took a lot of energy to build it all back together. During this time he was also fighting communists. Fascists and communists had very different ideals, and the communists were a big threat to his reign. Against this backdrop, it was unlikely that Mussolini wanted to enter another war. He was still trying to bring Italy together from the first mess. But increasingly, things were starting to look against him. Hitler was building on his power base in Germany very rapidly, and it started to look like Foch, the French general, was right when he predicted that war would come to Europe again. Mussolini had a difficult relationship with Hitler. They didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things. But Mussolini decided that he needed friends. If France was to be difficult again, he wasn't sure if he could keep them out, especially with the United Kingdom on their side. Emboldened by the messages coming from Germany, Mussolini started to dream of restoring the old Roman Empire. The Adriatic coast, Albania, Greece, the Balkans, even Austria-Hungary and Spain, they were all targets in Mussolini's eyes. It is 1936. The challenge is set. Italy needs to dominate the Mediterranean again. With some help of Germany, or maybe on your own, you could try and find out if this can work. Hearts of Iron 4 History Lessons by Dr. Klumber. Please drop a like if you like this video. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what else you want to see. Thank you very much.